Another race in the books and another controversial ending. This week, Denny Hamlin won at Pocono after late race contact, or rather an incident, with Kyle Larson. In this video, I have compiled every modern-day NASCAR Cup Series driver Hamlin has had a dispute with. I will also be tallying a chart to see how often Hamlin is at fault and how many times it is someone else. Now, on to number 1. Perhaps the most well-known rivalry on this list, Ross Chastain versus Denny Hamlin, goes back years. The first instance I can find of the two together is the September 2020 Xfinity Series race at Darlington, and to me that looks like more of a racing deal than anything. However, the feud really started at the 2022 Gateway race, where Chastain gave Hamlin a bump, sending the 11 car into the wall. Even though I'm a fan of Ross Chastain, this was 100% on him. At Atlanta later in the year, Ross got tight and didn't lift, which resulted in Denny Hamlin being hooked into the infield. Even Ross himself admitted he was at fault for the incident. He eventually got his payback at Pocono that year, as well as at the Phoenix Spring Race in 2023 for an incident in the clash earlier that year. However, those will not be counted towards the total because they were in retaliation. However, the payback at Phoenix cost Hamlin points as he sacrificed a better finishing position. Next, a feud I did not know about was Denny Hamlin versus Austin Dillon in the Xfinity Series. In 2012, Hamlin was upset with him at Texas Motor Speedway, accusing Dillon of running him out of room, although I have not found footage of the original incident.
You can't crowd a guy that's running. I'm on the bottom. I'm all the way to the apron. So I'm doing everything I can. Then after the checkered flag, he wants to run into me. So I run him into the fence.
In 2015, at New Hampshire, fighting for the win with 22 laps to go, Dillon came down on Hamlin, and the Joe Gibbs racing car scooted up. Although Dillon's contact could have contributed to the 20-car breaking traction, I am putting this on Denny as he overcooked the corner a ton. In 2010, Kevin Harvick and Denny Hamlin had an aggressive exchange in the garage after Harvick pestered Hamlin during the opening stages of practice at Dover after Hamlin's accusation that the Richard Childress 33 team was pushing the envelope against NASCAR as far as inspection goes for months. For context, Clint Bowyer and the 33 team were penalized after failing inspection after their win at New Hampshire. Because this started in the media center, I will not include it in the tally, but it would be completely naive to think that teams aren't pushing the envelope. In 2014, at the Bristol Night Race, Harvick turned the 11 car from the lead. It was deemed a misjudgment on Harvick, but the result was still on him. Now on the driver that is the reason I made this video, Kyle Larson. At Kansas earlier this year, Hamlin tapped the rear bumper of the 5 car, which was enough to get him loose. Although it wasn't intentional, if Ross is wrong for being aggressive like this, then this is wrong too. Then, Hamlin had a late race incident with Kyle Larson yesterday at Pocono. In all fairness, this is similar to moves we have seen Larson do in the middle of races before, and similar to passes made in dirt track racing anywhere. However, I do not foresee Hamlin being content if this move was done on him by anyone else. Besides, he loses all credibility by claiming they didn't even touch. The next driver is Brad Keselowski. Other than walking in on Brad on the porta potty, they had a bit of a running feud starting at the 2008 Lozmer Speedway nationwide race. It was ignited when Hamlin swiped Keselowski under caution. It is worth mentioning that Dale Jr., who owned the 88 car at the time that Brad was driving, gave Denny a bump while pacing as a way of saying, hey. Unfortunately, I have not seen footage of the original incident. However, from Hamlin's account of the events, it sounded like Brad was just racing hard.
There's many times during the race where I had him cleared except for maybe 2 inches. Instead, he hangs on my right rear quarter and then goes in the corner right on my door. And we had a position on him late in the race, and he came from the bottom all the way to the top and cut our nose off just to block us. And we just don't roll like that. It's not the thing to do.
He may have been blocking and being aggressive, trying to make passes, but it never sounded like there was any substantial contact. It's called motor racing. At Dover the next year, Hamlin made a block a tad too late and got turned around by Brad. Brad held his line, and I deem him to not be at fault for this second incident. In 2014, at Charlotte, now in the Cup Series, Keselowski gave the 11 a forceful bump and then got slid upwards. After the race, Brad tried to retaliate, but really spun out himself. According to Brad, the 11 had swiped at him first under pacing. The bump from earlier in the race was aggressive and made Hamlin loose, so I'm going to put this one on Brad, but it wasn't too egregious. Now we move on to one of the most confusing feuds on this list, Denny Hamlin versus Corey LaJoie. This happened in 2020, and it started when LaJoie tweeted his stats from his Whoop fitness strap, and Hamlin posted his, which showed a significantly lower heart rate and amount of calories burned. LaJoie said that given the same car, he could have the same results. Hamlin disagreed and basically said LaJoie wasn't fit. Hamlin just had to get the last word and said, "Hopefully the poor me narrative works out for you."
That's the tweet. Got 4 likes too. That guy.
In the first Martinsville race that year, LaJoie, in the Go Fast 32 car, finished ahead of the 11. Hamlin got a lot of heat on social media from fans, and it boiled over, causing him to text a bunch of people on the 32 team, "Congrats on getting your stuff crashed. Your driver has got to learn a hard lesson." NASCAR was alerted of this and sat them down to talk. I extremely recommend listening to the episode of LaJoie's podcast. For more, I will leave a link to that in the description. It sounds like they smoothed it over, and Denny was even on Corey's new podcast, Stacking Pennies, last year. But I will place the blame on Hamlin for this one, as there was no apparent good reason to get that upset about the whole thing. In the 2010 All-Star race, Hamlin cut off Kyle Busch, causing Busch to go into the wall. Kyle then had a tire go down, possibly from the contact with the outside wall. Busch was so upset that he went to the 11 car's hauler. He believed he was cut off, while Hamlin said a hole wasn't there. It was very close, but you cannot do that to your teammate. It cost a Joe Gibbs racing car the win. This one's on Hamlin. Chase Elliott is no stranger to Denny Hamlin. Famously, in 2017, he got punted by him, which is obviously on Hamlin, even though it may not have been intentional. Elliott got his payback in the Phoenix race a bit later in the season. Then, this year, Elliott right-hooked Hamlin into the wall at Charlotte after being put in the wall by him. While right-hooking someone on the front stretch of a quad oval is not how disputes should be handled, this overshadowed the fact that Hamlin was not driving the way he wishes others would. This incident started because of Hamlin. Ryan Blaney was run into by Hamlin after the 11 car locked up his brakes at Sonoma in 2022. Credit to Hamlin, though, for apologizing profusely on his radio and even saying that he would give Blaney the spot back. Because this isn't really a dispute, as both parties agreed with who is at fault, I will not add it to the tally. At the 2021 Indianapolis road course, Chase Briscoe was forced off track and received a penalty. Before servicing it, he dumped Hamlin from the lead. I would not say that Denny is at fault for this, as AJ Allmendinger was right on his inside. JJ Yeley squeezed Hamlin at Richmond in 2023, forcing him to lift. However, Hamlin got back in the gas and turned him around. This was off the heels of Hamlin talking about the lack of driver respect, so I say this was uncalled for. Going through old radioactives, you are bound to find Truex getting upset at Hamlin. But, to give a couple of examples, he said at Nashville that the 11 car cost him the win. And then, referencing this weekend, here's what Truex had to say about the 11's win.
I did exactly what Denny did other than running through, pushing the 5 car too deep in the corner and then run him in the fence off of 2. So, he kind of took it that extra little bit, I guess, to make it a little bit dirty. And, I didn't. So maybe that's, the difference why he won and I didn't. It's too early in the year. We got playoffs coming up. We don't need to be running guys in the fence for a win.
In 2013 at Bristol, Joey Logano cut off Hamlin, but was then nudged out of the way by the 11. Hamlin said he didn't mean to spin him, but nevertheless the 22 still went around, so this is on Denny. 6 years later, Joey and Denny fought at Martinsville after the 11 wall to 22, but I will not include this as on Hamlin because Denny pointed out the similar way Joey has raced. Another bizarre one, Bubba Wallace at the 2018 Daytona 500 doored Hamlin trying to catch the draft, but it resulted with the 11 forcing the 43 up into the outside wall. Hamlin claimed he had a tire go down, but after being so close to a Daytona 500 win, I imagine he was pretty frustrated, so I think this one is on Hamlin. In the 2022 Texas race, Denny Hamlin washed up on William Byron, which put the 24 in the outside wall. After the next caution, Williams spun out the 11. This is on Denny. Since then, they seem to have made up, and William Byron was even on the Actions Detrimental podcast with Hamlin. In the 2022 Gateway race, Ricky Stenhouse bumped Bubba Wallace heading into the corner. Hamlin, after seeing his car get wrecked, showed his displeasure with Ricky. I believe the 47 got into the corner way too hard, so Denny had a right to be upset. Another one of the famous Hendrick driver feuds, Alex Bowman and Denny Hamlin. At Martinsville in 2021, Bowman turned Hamlin from the lead, which could have caused Hamlin to miss the championship four. However, he still made it in, but was unhappy with the 48. The 48 was at fault for this, but at Pocono last week, Hamlin packed air on the bumper of Bowman's car, and he went around. Even though this is the common strategy to pass at Pocono, NASCAR Cup cars are known to be aero-sensitive, so I think Hamlin is at fault for this. Now that is all of the current Cup Series drivers that have feuded with Hamlin at some point. If I've missed any, feel free to comment, and see you next time. Here's a look at the chart.